So we're all getting into World Cup mode. Well, most of us are, except for if you support the Pakistan cricket team, who are in England and Ireland mode. But we've seen a bunch of countries announce their squads for the World Cup, apart from Pakistan again. But I guess we have an indication of where they might be going. Some very interesting picks for some of the other teams. Some underwhelming picks, in my opinion, especially with regards to India, and we'll come on to that in a bit. Spoiler alert there on our opinions. I've got Moin here to discuss. Moin, I guess let's start with India, but I guess we should go around the other countries as well. Initial thoughts, feelings, disappointment, excitement.
You know, this is one of those squads, and not just India, across the board, where, as with most tournaments, it can go one of two ways. Either you say, you know what, this will be one of either the swan song or the precursor to the swan song for big players, and you just go with the tried and tested and just give them one last hurrah,
Yeah,
or you say, you know what, like there's a lot of talent coming through, and some fresh blood is always helpful.
yeah,
Now, if we roll back the clock 20 years ago, the second approach was unheard of in a World Cup. They're like, no, obviously go with experience. And that still holds true. But in today's world of matchups and data and all that, there is an extra benefit compared to historically of having players that opposition teams have not seen before, because of the amount of over preparation that happens. Sometimes it's
yeah,
an advantage to have a debutant as opposed to not. Obviously I'm exaggerating a bit, they need to still perform, but that's why I think i I'll be honest, I think India's team is safe. They've gone with experience, but I'm left wanting a little more. This was an
yeah,
IPL, at least on the batting side, that showed tremendous talent. And I'm one of the believers. Obviously, you've heard our previous chats where we've talked about how IPL does not translate always into international performance. I get it, but I think it's still worth having a couple of new names, right?
yeah,
Just to mix things up, and just give them a go. Like, one out of the 11 can perhaps be someone who's completely blown your mind in a decently competitive IPL. I just think they've missed a slight trick here, because in our part of the world, selectors who don't have long-term jobs often go into job preservation territory and say, you know what, I'm just going to go with the safest, so no one can
yeah.
doubt me, or no one can criticize me for picking Kohli and Sky and Rohit. Um, by the way, I think they should be in the team. I'm not saying they should,
Yeah.
but I think there are some players in the team that got a bit lucky there.
Hardik Pandya, I guess, one of those.
I mean, yeah,
But but this is, I guess, one of the things where you'd probably, we discussed in the previous episode the impact of the impact substitute or the impact player. And ironically, I think someone like Hardik Pandya, although he is an all rounder, but his position has been saved because someone like a Shivam Dubey, who is he's in the squad as well, but he probably won't start. But he is actually an all rounder, but he's only been batting in the IPL. And
exactly.
a lot of the other kind of all rounders, they haven't really had the opportunities. So Hardik Pandya has kind of saved himself or been saved, despite his rather average performances. But the one thing that I'm also a bit surprised about is if you look at India's recent ICC record, pro tournament record, right? I mean, they've not won anything for the last 10, 11 years, fair. But they've always been there and thereabouts, right? They were the semi-final in the 2016 T20, final of the Champions Trophy, semi-final of the World Cup in 2019, final, 2022 semi-final, 2023 final. Their worst World Cup campaign in recent times was a 2021 World Cup campaign. And this batting lineup, barring one player from number 1 to 7, is ditto the same as that 2021 campaign. You've got no KL Rahul, but you have Rohit Sharma and Jaiswal who will probably open. You have Kohli at 3, you have Sky at 4, you have Rishabh Pant at 5, you have Pandya at 6, and you have Jadeja at 7.
You didn't have Did Pandya play that World Cup?
He was there, no?
Oh, oh, oh. Or was it that time when he only batted and didn't bowl?
So after all the promise that you've seen in the IPL and everything that you've discussed, they've literally ended up 3 years later with the same, at least the top seven almost. And you could have also argued that maybe KL Rahul could
Should have
have
been.
found a way into this team also. Um, and then okay, the bowlers will be obviously different. You've got Bumrah, Siraj. Again, Siraj, if you look at IPL form, has been questionable. I'm glad to see Yuzi Chahal start finally making it into a T20 squad. I doubt he'll start. I think Kuldeep has kind of been the blue-eyed boy. So, but look, I mean, my point being that after all these changes, look, on paper, it's still a very, very, very strong team. Um, but like you say, I just felt maybe one or two picks, maybe a Rinku Singh, maybe an Abhishek Sharma, just to
Abhishek
spice
Sharma.
things up a little bit.
I love Abhishek Sharma. I mean, that guy, like, oh my god, like, I'm a big fan. I'm a big believer. Even Sashank Singh,
Yeah,
um, yeah, okay, maybe that was just one or two innings max, but I mean, there's a lot to choose from, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's a good problem to have. But this is my thinking, right? On Hardik Pandya, you see, he's only there because he's been the designated vice captain. Like,
yeah,
I wish people understood how irrelevant the vice captain is in the modern game outside of Test cricket. Okay, the reason I say that is because the vice captain used to be really important back in the day when you didn't have massive coaching staffs, massive team management. So vice captain used to be the one doing all the work that the captain would suggest, right? You just had one team manager and that was basically it, right? Now with all this coaching stuff, you don't really need a vice captain, or at least you don't
yeah,
need to pick him just because he's a vice captain.
yeah,
And especially in our part of the world where there's, you know, well, at least in Pakistan, maybe it's different in India, where somehow the transition from a vice captain to a captain doesn't always happen.
yeah,
And I even remember with India, I didn't. I remember Sehwag was vice captain for the longest time and then was overlooked. Somehow
yeah,
there always tends to be tension between captain, vice captain. There's a bit of a,
yeah,
someone else comes in and usurps the vice captain. So I just think it doesn't serve its purpose and it can be more
yeah,
harmful than good. And especially
yeah,
when the vice captain is underperforming. I think it's absurd. I think that's the one, like, for me, Pandya does not make it. Okay. And I'm
yeah.
sorry, Hardik Pandya fans. He has not performed well in most global tournaments. Okay. He has one or two good games max, but he just ends up either getting injured or he ends up losing form and one if it's too soon. So for me, Hardik Pandya, people will point to that 2016 T20 World Cup game where Hardik Pandya bowled that last over, but for God's sake, he didn't win us. He didn't win India the game. Dhoni won India that game,
And
and
it was against Bangladesh. I mean,
I know, and Mushfiqur Rahman. I mean, I would say Mushfiqur Rahim. What that guy did when you needed only 2 runs. I mean, I can't, and
yeah,
I was so upset because I think Pakistan needed Bangladesh to win that. But anyways, so for me, Hardik Pandya doesn't make it. KL Rahul
yeah,
definitely does not make it. That is the one really good decision they've made
yeah,
finally. Um, and Siraj doesn't make it. Like, I don't see Mohammad Siraj as a T20 bowler. I just don't.
yeah.
So for me, I would have gone either Abhishek or Sashank Singh or even a Rinku Singh. I don't, I would have. I think there are a couple of bowlers in India that didn't get a chance. Aksa Patel, Zaid, it's tough to
I think
get excited about that name.
it's just a Jadeja understudy. Like need to have an insurance policy for Jadeja. I think that's the only reason.
But do you even need an insurance policy? I mean, does Jadeja even fit into your starting 11? Like, for
I
me,
think, well,
he's
he
also
will.
had such an underwhelming team. I know he will, but should he? When you've got such good batting depth, and
Yeah,
Pandya or Dupe, I mean, you can have Dupe or Pandya, whoever plays, bowl
yeah,
their full quota of 4 overs. Like,
yeah,
Jadeja has not excelled with the bat or the ball. And I just think he takes up a very important position in a
yeah.
team that already has so much talent to choose from. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. Agreed. And look, I mean, this is. I know people are very sensitive and passionate about the Indian team, and I'm sure Pandya fans and Jadeja fans will pull out every stat from the books to back their selection. But look, I think that there's a case either way. I guess the only point is, if you were going to get like the players you mentioned, Abhishek Sharma or Shashank Singh or even Rinku Singh, who's in the reserves. But what does that really do except for get you a free tour of the USA and the West Indies? Is that they obviously are pure batsmen, right? So what else can they do? So I think they need to have that insurance policy. And
Fair enough.
the other thing with India squad, which is a bit surprising, and I think we'll come on to how Pakistan have gone the other way, is India only have three fast bowlers in the whole squad, which means that Pandya is definitely going to start because they want that fourth seamer option or even a third
Absolutely.
seamer and two spinners. So so yeah, I'm surprised they didn't have an extra fast bowler if they could have fitted that in. And like you say, it's one that they have had to make a safe decision. Otherwise, they would have had to drop Rohit Sharma or a Virat Kohli
Which they're never ever going to
maybe
do.
yeah, or Sanju Samson, who's got his own cult
Brilliant.
following.
Yeah, but Sanju
So, but again,
Samson is so good.
the poor guy, he might play against Canada or USA and like smash 100, but then he's going to get dropped for the bigger games, and that's just the reality of it.
But I do
It's
think
also
Sky
yeah,
does need to come good. I don't think
yeah,
he's a. I know he'll be a shoe in initially, but he's the one that they'll be looking at. Okay, does he start? And I know the good thing is Sanju can also keep wicket.
yeah,
So Pant's, so Pant will also have to keep proving himself. But
yeah,
so it's not like I think we know what the starting 11 or close to knowing what the
yeah,
starting 11 will be at the start of the tournament, but it could change.
yeah,
Yes, you're
yeah,
right. I think West Indies also spin friendly wickets, so that's why
yeah,
you need a Jadeja and all, to play. Um, I think though that you know when you look at India's squad, they,
yeah,
you know, one thing one must realize: T20 cricket more than any other tournament relies a lot more on in the moment form. Okay, and
yeah,
I fear some of the players that they have there are not
yeah,
in the best of nick. Right now, they could well get back into the nick. There's still
yeah,
like a decent chunk of the tournament left in the
yeah,
IPL. But I think that's one where that's why I was a bit tempted to go with what some of the inform
yeah,
IPL players,
yeah.
obviously accepting that there is a different standard in international cricket.
Yeah, look, I think, like I said, maybe not all of them, but maybe one or two of them, just to add a bit of spice. Um, but like you said, I think they've gone a bit safe. Um,
But what about the
uh,
bowling, the
Look again,
fast
like I
bowlers?
said, yeah, like I said, like three. I guess the only thing that probably saved someone like keeping Siraj is obviously injury. Shami is injured, so he would have probably been the other one. Um, and then there've been inconsistent options, right? I mean, there's Avesh Khan and Khalil Ahmed who've made the reserves, but Avesh Khan, he's played international cricket. I don't think he's really lived up to it. He's played well against weaker oppositions, but he's lacked consistency. I think his was it the semi-final of the last World Cup where he got tonked around. So I'm not sure about him. Arshdeep, obviously, yeah, I don't think he's had the best IPL as well, but
He
um,
hasn't. No, but no bowler
yeah,
has. In fairness, I think
yeah.
that's the point.
Except
Yeah,
Bumrah, of course. But and
of
the other
course.
the other thing which is a bit surprising is they've got Ashdeep and Bumrah obviously were specialist death bowlers. There is a weakness I think in the beginning. Obviously, Bumrah might bowl one or two in the beginning, but I think for the opposition there is that big gap in the beginning overs. If they start going after the bowling, then Sharma has a decision to make whether he bowls three for Bumrah or kind of saves him for the end. But we've seen what happens in the IPL if you try and save Bumrah till the end.
Exactly
So
that. Exactly. Oh, you can split it. I think you can have him bowl the 13th over and then bowl the 18th. But yeah,
yeah,
it's a look. I think 2020 is one of those games, as we've always talked about. It's always about momentum, right? The
yeah,
minute you lose momentum, it's quite tough to get it back because the game's just quite short. So
yeah,
that's why, hopefully, in this tournament, you'll see captains learning from their mistakes, barring Babar
yeah,
Azam, and just being a little more innovative and agile on their feet. I hope
yeah,
that's what will happen. But look, that's India. We've
yeah.
talked at length about India, but now let's just move on to the other big squad announcement: Australia.
And I was going to say on the Australia bit, right? I mean, you mentioned India and how they haven't favored kind of IPL form. I think Australia have kind of gone the same way. Obviously, the kind of the most obvious guy was Jake Fraser McGurk, who's had a phenomenal IPL. I think he smashed against MI, which included Bumrah. He hit like 80 of 24 or something, and a couple of other good innings. So he was probably the obvious one who's been omitted along with Steve Smith. But I think Steve Smith, you can probably anticipate why. Um, so again, they've probably gone a little bit safe. They've gone with, David Warner, your Maxwell's, Mitchell Marsh, captain, obviously, Pat Cummins. So again, they've played it a bit safe, but I think a lot of their players have evolved, over time. Travis Head, I think it'll be interesting to see how he goes at the top of the order. So, look, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still Australia, right? So, regardless of what you say, you'll still end up winning the bloody thing. So,
Yeah, when I look at that team, I was like, yeah, these are World Cup winners. Like, you just look at every Australia team, World Cup winners. Like,
yeah,
we're World Cup winners. The only time when I didn't think that was, I think their squad is a bit weaker in 2019. And you only
yeah,
thought that because Warner and Steve Smith were still getting back into cricket, right?
yeah,
So we were still unsure how they were going to do. And because there was a bit of a sort of a transition or a bit of a gulf for
yeah,
12 months prior, Australia had a weaker team there. But otherwise, every time they fielded it like a squad, you're like, yeah. Like,
yeah,
and when you look at that, you've got all. But the one thing Australia have, all
yeah,
rounders.
yeah,
They've got all rounders in plenty, right? They've got, and it'll be quite a big like toss up between a few of them as to who makes the starting 11, because
yeah,
I think your bowlers are set, right? In Australia, it's the bowling that probably are the first names that get put on paper, with your Stark, Pat
mm,
Cummins, and Josh Hazelwood
yeah.
and Adam Zampa, right? So, and then it's filling in the rest. I, it's going to be quite tough to see who plays 5, 6, 7 for them.
Yeah, and they got so many options: Tim David, Glenn Maxwell. Um, I think yeah, they've kind of, I mean, Travis Head's, kind of saved himself, or kind of by becoming an opener, taking that top order slot along with
I agree.
Warner, and then Mitchell Marsh will probably slot in at three. He's captain, so he'll definitely play. But then it's a bit of a lottery. I mean, I have no idea who might come in after that. I mean, any of Cameron Green as well, he's there. So I mean, it's just Stoinis, of course.
I think
Uh,
Stoinis has made a big case for himself
yeah.
now after his performance.
So
But it's not going to be
uh,
easy. It's
yeah,
absolutely not
yeah,
going to be easy.
yeah. But still, very very strong team. I mean, we were. This is also pretty similar to what we've seen in the past with, nothing exceptionally new. But it's Australia, right? So what else can you say about them? They'll always be there and thereabout.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of being there and thereabouts, England, another, well, world champions currently. Again, probably one big surprise, Jofra Archer. Again, random pick, as he always is. Just before a tournament, he gets picked after not playing for 2 years and then breaks down again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, look, I completely understand it. Look, I think a player like Jofra Archer, you know, look, he's a bit overrated, I'll say, only because the sample size of his performances at the international stage are quite limited.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that England are still psychologically reeling from the World Cup in
Yeah.
India in the ODI format, um, where the bowling is what really let them down. So did the batting, but it's the bowling and conceding those big totals. You just felt
Yeah.
out of depths. And the
Yeah.
issue here is that the West Indian conditions will not be that dissimilar to India,
Yeah.
right? So I think they feel like they need the extra pace, right? Your
Yeah.
classic Chris Wokes seam up isn't going to work, which is why Chris Wokes misses out.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good squad. It's a very very good squad. I mean, you can barely feel Stokes' absence. If anything, I think
Yeah.
there are quite a few that easily slot in that vacant number 4 spot, number 4, number
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great team. I'm glad Phil Salt can finally open.
Yeah.
Alex Hales is no longer
Yeah.
in the thick of things. Obviously, Jason Roy for a
Yeah.
while now. And to think that these players would slot into first 11s, like Jason Roy would
Yeah.
easily slot into first 11 in Pakistan. I mean,
Yeah.
what are we? But yeah, look, and I think Butler, great to see that Butler prioritizes international cricket, right? He knows that
Yeah.
they need to create a winning formula at the international level. They haven't been that successful of late. So get that. Winning is a habit. We've been saying it again and
Yeah,
again, and also finding your best 11 is gonna
yeah,
not gonna be that easy. So great team.
yeah.
I
And I
understand
mean,
Jofra Archer being there.
yeah, and they'll be going into the World Cup with 5 wins on the bounce, right? Because they'll probably beat Pakistan, what,
100%.
4-0, 5-0,
Yeah,
5-0,
but
whatever
you
it
look
is.
at it, Salman Aga coming in at number three and suddenly throwing every plan or every possible combination and permutation in our head out of the window.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. The only thing I'd say about the England squad is the biggest question for them is, you mentioned they've got a very strong top order. In a way, similar to Pakistan, they've got like 4 or 5 openers.
yeah,
I guess they'll have Salt and Butler, but then Bairstow's had a decent IPL. He chased down 260 in 18 overs, got 100 in that game. So and I guess he'll probably have to bat at 3. And then Will Jacks again, he's been pretty decent. He's got 100 also. So he'll
yeah.
probably
Actually,
bat
it's
at
actually,
4.
and then you got Brook at five. No,
Yeah, and then Moeen Ali's vice captain, I think. So he will probably have to play at 6 or 7.
I know Livingston
Oh
six
yeah,
and more.
Livingston is there as well. Yeah.
So
So I mean that's
basically, it actually is pretty good. It's an excellent top like batting lineup, but it's actually a
yeah.
lot better, I feel, than 2022.
I mean, but yeah, Sam Curran who was man of the tournament in the last World Cup, so he needs to fit in somewhere as well.
Yeah, but he'll be eight for sure. Sam Curran is always your number eight.
Okay.
Sam Curran's your eight. Then you've got Jofra Archer or Mark Wood. Mark Wood's in the squad, I think.
Adil
And
Rashid,
then,
obviously.
yeah, and Adil Rashid. So you've got so then you have number
Yeah.
11 that's up for grabs. You've got Sam Curran, Jofra Archer, Adil
Topley.
Rashid, and probably Mark Wood. And
Yeah.
or if one, I think Mark Wood, they don't play every game. So then there's
Yeah.
the guy who missed the 22 World Cup, Topley,
Yeah.
and or if Jofra Archer's injured, he comes in and plays
Yeah.
there. So there is a slight weakness
Yeah.
when I think about the bowling, only because Wood can leak a lot of runs, and Topley, he's good, but he's not the same level as your
Yeah.
Cummins and all.
Yeah.
Um, but I think overall a good squad. But
Yeah. But
the
that's
reason why
been yeah.
the reason I think the batting's better is because
Yeah.
when Stokes was in the team, Bairstow had an like what was like, it was quite tough to understand Bairstow's position in the team, right?
Yeah.
Because he would end up having to bat at number five, which was far too low for him. And the bowling, what do you think they could go with? Sort of, I'm thinking of their squad. The issue
Yeah.
is they have Adil Rashid as a specialist spinner.
Yeah.
Do
I
they
mean, they've
have
got
enough?
Livingston.
Yeah,
Livingston is like the part time, but I think they're pretty. This has been their bowling attack for a while, and I think there's
Moeen
always
Ali.
been this, yeah, lopsided batting versus bowling, but they won the last World Cup with a very similar balance. So I think they do rely on their batting a lot, and this is a team that can chase down 250 on their day. So
Oh,
that's what
guess
they
who we
back themselves
forgot?
to do. Ben
Chris
Duckett,
Jordan.
Chris Jordan, yeah, Chris Jordan's there,
Chris
but he might. I
Jordan
don't know.
actually. Go on.
I'm not sure if he'll start. I don't think so. I think he's
You think Topley starts before Jordan?
if Archer plays, then I don't think Jordan will play.
Why?
Well, because he'll probably bowl at the. He'll have because Topley will probably open the bowling. He'll have
Yeah, he's in a good
Topley,
opening
Wood, and
bowler. Yeah, yeah.
Archer. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think English they'll have Archer, Topley, and Wood would probably be their starting three, and then you'll have Adil Rashid.
yeah.
Actually,
I agree
no,
with that.
maybe
I
two
agree with
of them,
that.
and then Sam Curran. Sorry, maybe only Wood and Archer, and then Sam Curran as your third.
But I think what they'll do is they'll rotate Wood and Archer because both are injury
Yeah,
prone. They'll
maybe,
have one express
maybe,
pace and they'll have both Topley and Jordan.
potentially,
Obviously,
yeah.
don't forget Sam Curran. Sam Curran is
Sam
also.
Curran's exactly. So it'll be interesting. I think, or maybe they'll have to drop someone in the batting and have Curran at 7, Adil
Yeah,
Rashid
no,
at 8.
yeah, yeah. So actually thinking about it, I think Sam Curran's a sure shot, and I think he'll be eight.
Yeah,
I think it's the last time they tried to
yeah,
um, make their batting lineup sort of unconventionally thin
yeah,
was at Mumbai when South
yeah,
Africa scored 398, and they
yeah,
were well. It was ended up being a horror
yeah,
show. So I think it'll be Sam Curran, one
yeah,
of Archer or Wood, and probably Topley because he's better
Yeah.
with the pure ball.
Yeah.
But if
Potentially.
maybe if Wood is playing, then maybe there's a case for
Yeah.
Jordan. But if yeah, so ultimately Sam Curran definitely slots in at number 8, and then I think if Archer plays, you're right, Topley will probably be preferred because he's better with he has an edge over Jordan with the newer ball, and
Yeah.
Archer's good at the death. If Wood plays, I think there's a potential case for Jordan to
Yeah.
play in place of Topley. I think they'll try and rotate it slightly to
Yeah.
preserve injuries. But yeah, as I mentioned, Sam Curran at number 7 is just too high. They'll
Yeah.
concede the equivalent of 398 and then be bundled out for less than 50.
Yeah, but still, in any way, very very strong squad. Um, Maybe just quickly touching up on South Africa and New Zealand as well. New Zealand, I think, pretty no surprises. The only embarrassment from a Pakistani perspective is that three of those, like three players from the recently concluded thrilling 2-2 series have made it to the final World Cup squad for New Zealand, and I'm not sure how many of those three will actually start. But
Yeah, it's
Bracewell, Nisham, and Chapman, I think, and Ishodi, yeah, four of them. So
yeah, but Mark Chapman I think was always going to be sort of selected. I think the key
yeah,
question there was Jimmy Neesham. I think he
yeah,
had to really prove himself because he had sort of fallen out of the starting 11. Look, I think the difficulty with New Zealand, or the simplicity, is it's one of those teams where the sum is always so the whole is always
yeah,
greater than the sum of its parts. It's
yeah,
they always come with a bot standard lineup. Nobody really
yeah,
talks about them. There isn't someone like, oh my god, can't wait to see this guy in action. But
yeah,
somehow they punch above their weight. They've got Kane Williamson, right? That's so clearly it's 3-1 if you are in the, or 3-2 if you are in the, compare anchors versus no anchors. You've got Kohli, Barber, Williamson, but then you don't have
yeah.
Smith and you don't have Tempa Bavuma.
Joe
Not
Root
quite the
as
same
well.
standard. Not quite the same standard, I have to say.
Joe Root as
But
well. Not
you don't have
business.
Joe Root. You don't have Joe Root. But
Yeah,
that was a
yeah,
that was something they said goodbye to long before it became fashionable, I
yeah.
have to say.
Um, South Africa again. You mentioned Bavuma. Unfortunately, does not make the cut. But I think South Africa overall a decent squad. Some familiar names, David Millard, QDK, Markram, but a couple of new ones. Tristan Stubbs. Interesting to see how he actually goes. He's had a mixed IPL, um, but yeah, I mean, I've actually been surprised that Andre Nokia has not been as lethal as he's been in the past. So I don't know whether it's just loss in form or he's not. Putting in his 100% at the IPL. So, but it'll be interesting to see how he goes. But otherwise, a decent South African squad as well.
Yeah, I think close to a big tournament, he doesn't want to get injured. I kind
Yeah,
of understand after what happened last time. But look, I think
yeah,
South Africa is probably the most exciting squad, I have to say. And the reason I say that is because it's the perfect blend of experience, but yet people who've
yeah,
impressed in the domestic leagues and circuits, right? So,
yeah,
and we always kept talking about Bavuma being a weakling in the team, and now that's no longer there.
yeah,
So I actually think this is a very strong team.
yeah. I
Solid
mean,
bat,
yeah,
solid bowling.
yeah, and I mean that middle order of Klaassen and Miller, and
And Markram. Don't forget Markram.
Markram. Yeah,
Yeah,
Markram, Klaassen, Miller. I think
it's
they'll probably
very
open with
strong.
they'll open with QDK, who's been a bit out of form in the IPL, but again, it's IPL. QDK and Reza Hendricks, who should have played in the World Cup, will
Absolutely.
finally.
Yeah, yeah. And look, I think Markram is also a good captain.
Yeah,
The only thing is slow wickets in the West Indies, right?
yeah,
People have talked about that. I think it's less of an issue. Remember, the last time
mm,
West Indies hosted a tournament, South Africa made it to the semis and were one of the favorites. It's just that they came across the great Australian team that completely bulldozed them and they choked, as they do. But conditions weren't a problem. And I know that was a
yeah,
star-studded South African team with Jock Callis, Graham Smith, etc.,
yeah,
Ashwell Prince. But this one is on their way there. It's not the same,
yeah,
but in terms of
yeah,
T20 stardom, it's pretty
yeah.
strong.
Yeah, and it's a very strong. Back to the middle order, and if you put Stubbs in there as well, I mean, if they get going, they can literally hit 120, 115 the last 8, 9 overs, right?
Yeah.
So,
In fact, they are
so
partly to credit for IPL's crazy scores, right? I mean,
yeah, Klassen probably was one of the finds. So I mean, those are all the
and
World
I
Cup
still
squads, but
remember Zahid, do you remember when Klaasen made it to Pakistan for that series where South Africa B came to Pakistan during COVID,
oh
December
yeah,
2020, Jan 21? It really was a complete sort of, I don't know what to call it, but it was a very sort of second string team. And Klaasen was the captain, and Klaasen wasn't going to make it. And
yeah,
I think he still made it to the 2021 World Cup squad, but obviously you already had QTK who was keeping wicket, so he ended up being surplus to requirements. Nobody saw him as a batter, a specialist
yeah,
batter, and look at him now. And it's crazy,
yeah,
he's gone leaps and bounds, and he's cemented his
yeah.
place as the specialist middle order,
Yeah.
enforcer that you'd want in your team.
Extremely impressive, and look, it's one of those things, where you only wish Pakistan had someone like that.
Speaking of
Then,
good old Pakistan, you know,
uh,
you remember when you were in school and you had those like, you had like those typical people who always were late in submitting assignments and somehow always got an extension. Always, I remember at university that sometimes was me, and literally that's Pakistan every time. And
yeah,
I just think it's always
yeah,
it gives away the mentality and the morale in Pakistan.
yeah,
Okay, I'll tell you
yeah.
why. When Pakistan thought they were on top of the world, they'd be releasing their 11s 24, 48 hours before. And now we don't even
And
make the deadline for the squad announcement. We don't
yeah,
even meet it. Instead, we decide to sue, and everyone's
yeah,
presenting their T20 World Cup squad. Like, squad for the tour of Ireland and England.
yeah.
Like, okay,
It's
well,
it's like you gave the school analogy. For me, it's like when you've just walked out of an exam and everyone's discussing the answer. Oh, my answer was 7. My answer was 9. My answer was 10. And then there's Pakistan saying, "Yeah, my answer was like South Africa," or something like that.
yeah,
Where
yeah,
you're just
like
you're not even in
completely
the same
random,
ballpark,
right?
right?
Like where everyone is like thinking on one line as well. I did that. You're like, what?
Yeah, my answer was 2.5. Mine was 2.75. In Pakistan, we're like, yeah, my answer was like Australia. And it's just
Some random
pure.
random thing. But that's just Pakistan.
Um,
Late in
but
submitting assignments, probably submitting the wrong
yeah,
assignment, whatever it is. But here we are.
yeah.
Okay,
I mean, like
this
quite literally, you say wrong assignment. I think quite literally for a PE lesson, they've submitted like a history paper, like a history answer or something, because they've just like I don't know. Some of the selections just don't make sense. Okay, I hope this is like with the World Cup in mind, not like a B squad for the England series, because some of the picks I don't understand. We discussed obviously Osama Mir in the previous episode, so I'm in a
I'm so
way,
glad that he's on.
yeah,
Let's be positive
yeah,
here. I'm so glad he's
yeah.
not there, but I
I'm
just feel like you lost a chance of
yeah,
trying others like Imad and
exactly. I was like,
Abrar.
well, yeah, I was like, what's the point of playing him? Like, you might as well, you should have played Ibrar for 2 more games, given him more game time because he's still new to the white ball international circuit. So you should have given him 2 more games. But anyways, they've come to the right conclusion. We discussed India having 3 fast bowlers. Pakistan, okay, this is an 18-person squad. It's not a 15, but you've got 6 fast bowlers in there.
they,
And
they just said we cannot make up our minds, so we're gonna just so this is what you call when you delay the decision making process. You just want to kick the can down the road. Just kick it down the road. Like what?
yeah,
You can't
and
choose.
then
Pick all. The
and then I
classic
don't like,
thing.
and I don't get like you've like kicked out Zaman Khan. Okay, fine, he didn't have the best like
I agree with
performances,
that.
but
Yeah.
then yeah, that's fine. But then you got Hassan Ali. On what
That is
basis?
absurd. And you've got
Yeah.
Hassan Ali and where's Muhammad Wasim Jr.? Please explain to me, Zahid.
Where's
Please
Mohammad?
explain to me.
Where's Muhammad Ali? Like who had like an amazing PSL. Right? If you want to pick on form or PSL, like pick
Yeah, yeah.
Muhammad Ali.
I
Like
agree.
what has Hassan Ali
I agree.
done?
I agree. You
If
have
you
two
want like
choices.
if you want to go into the reserves of the reserves as a sixth fast bowler, like why would you go to someone who's been tried and tested 2,000 times? I don't know. Is it redemption that he's gonna like
No,
bowl
it's
Matthew
insanity.
Wade? He's gonna get Matthew Wade out first ball this time just to cover up for his drop catch or something in
Yes, which we clearly are not
2021.
over. We clearly aren't over that, given the event.
Like
But
I just don't get it
then
honestly.
why don't you just bring back Said Ajmal for the semi-final against Australia and get a lefty in there, and then let's just make all ends. In that case, we have a whole list of people who'll be we'll be bringing back from the dead to take that event. I mean, you know what I mean? Like just there's
Yeah.
Andrew Simons, yes.
Um.
But look,
But
ultimately you have two choices. Either you go with experience, okay, and you say, you know what, people who've represented us in global tournaments and have done well for us. You remember they've done
yeah.
well with the ball. Forget the bat, with the ball. That they should be decided on the bowling,
Yeah.
right? Wasim Junior is that. Or
Yeah.
you say, you know what, I'm gonna go with who I think performed really well in the PSL. Yes, I know the standard's not the same as international,
Yeah.
but form is important. So Muhammad
Yeah.
Ali. But you've gone
Yeah.
with Hassan Ali, the same player who was your seventh choice during the Asia Cup when everybody else was getting injured left, right, and center. I know Esanullah is still injured, and that's a
Yeah.
real shame because he had a lot of pace and he could have been really lethal. I agree, Saman Khan shouldn't be there. I get it, but Dhani, I don't know why Dhani has suddenly gone off the grid. I think he hasn't had good sort of a good domestic season. I know that, and he spends a lot of
Yeah.
his time on X talking about, why the injustices done to him and also Matthew Hayden's daughter. Uh, but but the ultimate of ultimate friend zones, if ever I saw one. Uh,
No comment on that. But I just, yeah. Overall, this and then Harris Hope's come back. I
yeah.
assume he's fit now, despite not being in the best of form. I mean, you mentioned not picking Mohammad Ali on the and ignoring his PSL form, but then you've literally brought in Imad Wasim and Mohammad Amir back into the squad predominantly because they had a good PSL and they've like gone around done well in the domestic leagues. Um, yeah, I'm surprised. Mohammad Haris, again he was not part of the New Zealand squad, so disappointing he doesn't make it. Good to see Azam Khan still there, but
Yeah, it's
yeah,
good to
just
see Azam there. Definitely, I would have had Muhammad. And like
yeah,
I've maintained that Muhammad Haris, who did really well in the last World Cup, suddenly due to a string of lower scores, even though his role is to be an enforcer, a power hitter, has been dropped, and he's nowhere near the plans. And it's sad, right? Because here you have Saim Ayub who opens the innings and
yeah,
gets low scores. And now and here you and on the other hand, Mohammad Haris, who not only is he there to be a power hitter, but you also bring him in at number five, number four, five, six when he doesn't have much time. So there's a bigger chance of him making a low single digit score.
yeah,
And he doesn't make it. Now I'm not questioning Sam Ayub, although I do have certain questions that are starting to surface. But I think Haris, there's been a bit of injustice, especially because he was captain of your Pakistan A team
yeah,
not so long ago, and he captained well. I don't think his batting was up to the mark on every occasion. Consistency was missing, but it said something about what you thought of him, and suddenly
yeah,
he's nowhere there. That's
yeah.
one.
Yeah, I mean, look, the other thing again, I have to bring this back to the Hassan Ali point. I don't know, maybe because he called Babar Azam is the king, he'll do anything in some podcast, and I don't know what it is, but if you want to apply the same logic, then Harris should probably be there as well because he's done decent, okay, not exceptionally well. And I have been a critic of selecting people on the basis of one innings of 28, but it's also you have to look at what else you have, right? I mean, you have Mohammad Irfan Niazi, who or Mohammad Irfan Khan, uh, who's been selected based on his PSL performances, and he's in the squad. It doesn't really make sense. Then you have to have if you're picking on PSL form, then you pick Mohammad Ali as well. Or if you're picking on some sort of past historic pedigree, then you know.
So I'll explain. I personally think
So
that I think
it's just very scrambled
But,
thinking.
but for me, I think it's the difference between batting and bowling in Pakistan. I think
Mm,
in bowling, because you know who your top few bowlers are. In
mm,
batting, there's such a dearth of talent, which is why you're looking to the
yeah,
PSL. Now,
yeah,
I agree, it should have been one of Usman Khan or Irfan Khan. I know Irfan got injured,
yeah,
but he did perform better than Usman. but yet
Yeah.
Usman has left so much to play for Pakistan. So, although I don't
Yeah.
think that should factor in the decision
Yeah.
making, I think it's more the fact that Usman Khan had a better PSL than Irfan. So
Yeah.
it's a toss up
Yeah.
between the two. I
I
do
mean, they play
believe
different positions as well, but yeah.
they play side. Yeah, yeah, I know they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
The other look, I'm glad that I'm glad Hasibullah isn't there.
Yeah. The biggest
Like
shock, the biggest, we haven't discussed the main, like the most random of the random picks. Salman Ali Agha, like, sort of
that,
randomly gets.
you know what? I was surprised because he was nowhere near the New Zealand squad, but I don't like. Yes, it feels like a third anchor, but I think what they see in Salman Aga is someone who can be a more consistent enforcer. So I wouldn't call him a power hitter who hits like at like 200 strike rate, but he's somebody who can accelerate, but do it in a way that's more consistent. Right. So he may not like be a 6 6 6 6. It may
Yeah.
be a little scattered, but it'll be better than an anchor does it. So I think that's a sort of a bit of a insurance policy, and I personally agree with that because when I think of Salman Aga, I do think he is someone who I've criticized him in
Mm.
the past, but he is someone who is a smart cricketer. You can see he thinks. He's thinking. He will rotate strike. He'll get things
Yeah.
moving. So I see it. I don't think he'll make it into the starting 11. He just doesn't fit in. But there, I do
We
see
said
it.
that
My
we said that in the 2023 World Cup as well, and then he ended up being there. So
He ended up being there, yes, but I think that's because Soj Shakil really disappointed, and then you
yeah,
ended up having like a couple of disappointing. Well, the main reason is your bowling was really disappointing, and Mohammad Nawaz was so disappointing. Shadab
yeah,
was so disappointing that we actually thought Salman Aga was a better all rounder part timer than Shadab and Nawaz were.
yeah.
So I think that's why.
It's yeah. It's weird actually if you read the press release on the PCB website, right? So they've actually like announced the score, but then categorized the players as well. So we've got a top order of Babar Azam, Fakhr Zaman, Mohammad Rizwan, Usman Khan, and then middle order, Iftikhar and whoever else. And then they've said all rounders Imad Wasim, Shadab Khan, and Salman Ali Agha.
Salman
So
Aga. So, but I think it's because in Test cricket he was your only spinner in Australia and he did pretty well. So suddenly this guy has been promoted.
yeah,
But my question is, if he's an all-rounder, why isn't Iftikhar an all-rounder? You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like,
They put Iftikhar, Azam Khan, and Irfan in like the middle order category, and then they've put in the pace battery, and it's weird that said pace. I mean, I think they've gone for it in alphabetical order. They've got the pace battery led by Muhammad Abbas Afridi. Like, wow, it's anything but leading the attack, but
but the last point I'll make, Zaid, is look. Ultimately, we have a big problem in the middle order.
yeah,
We've talked about Haris, who maybe should have Muhammad Haris, who should have come in the squad in place of maybe Hassan Ali, because you could do with
yeah,
one less bowler, and more options in the suit that you are traditionally weaker in. So that's
yeah.
Muhammad Haris. I'll do that. And then the other question is whether a certain somebody, a certain someone that goes by the name of Shoaib Malik makes it into the squad. Just I was the biggest critic of Shoaib Malik. I think he was somebody who put himself ahead of the team. He wasn't a good captain. A lot of what happened against Yunus Khan was often instigated by Shoaib Malik. So I have a lot against Shoaib Malik, right? Someone whose Twitter handle has changed perceptions during the mid 2010s. But and obviously his personal life. But put that all aside for a second. Shoaib Malik, I feel maybe now, obviously, he hasn't played international cricket in 3 years, so it was a big long shot if we did it. But I do think, at least in the squad, because of a lack of alternatives and also with the fact of fitness being an issue, for
Yeah.
me, I would have perhaps had him in the squad. I don't know, and maybe tried him for England and Ireland. Maybe I would have, if only if Harris wasn't in the plans at all, and maybe they have good reason. And actually, Zahid, I remember Harris really praising Babar, saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
he's helped me so much in my game," just like Sam Ayub said. And
Yeah.
Asif Ali also came out and said, "Oh, Babar is like, he is a legend." And I'm like, "It's some everybody come, some are just let's
Yeah.
all come in this because I now tomorrow I'm going to say Babar Azam is for me the greatest. greatest human being to have ever lived, and suddenly you will give me a ticket to the West Indies. But let's be, let's not kid ourselves here, right? I think
Yeah.
this 90% of the squad is fine. I'd say, um,
Yeah.
and it's tough to
Well,
go
I
wrong
wouldn't.
with an
I,
18-man squad.
yeah,
It's tough to go wrong.
I wouldn't say this is like it's a safe, like you say. There's nothing extraordinary in there, and it's an 18-person squad as well. So it's there will be, I think, some very. If you ask me right now, I think there are very three obvious cuts um, that will eventually not make the 15. But I don't know when they'll make that call. I think they can't wait till the England series, so they have to do it before that anyway. So it's not going to be
And who do
performance
you think it'll
based.
be? Hassan Ali,
Yeah, I mean, if it's my it'll be Hassan Ali, Irfan Khan, probably who else was it? Hassan Ali, Irfan Khan, and Salman Ali Agha, probably.
Salman Agha. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's right. I mean, unless I think what so I think what they're doing, Zahid, is I think they're trying to test whether if Iftihar doesn't make it and Salman takes his
yeah,
place, because I think Barber likes having that sixth off spin bowling
yeah,
option. He doesn't clearly trust Sam Ayub, so
yeah,
I think he wants that, and that's
yeah,
why Salman. So you may find Salman Agha does really well in the chance, one or two chances he gets. You may find him in the
yeah,
squad at the expense of Chacha
yeah,
Iftikhar. Maybe. You know what I think about Iftikhar now.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind that actually. Now that it's come to think of it, yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I don't think.
Because I'm struggling to see the value of the Iftikhar has been marketed as this power hitter,
Yeah,
Iftimania.
yeah,
But he isn't that. In fact, he soaks up so many dot balls, and at least Salman Aga rotates strike, right? And
yeah,
and then hits the odd boundary. Iftikhar Ahmed, forget hitting a boundary. He doesn't get off the mark. He doesn't rotate
yeah,
strike, and he'll hit and he'll get out caught on the boundary. So
yeah,
I think he's washed now. I could be
yeah.
eating my words if the car could perform some stunning innings, but let's see.
No, I doubt it. I highly doubt it. But yeah, overall, I mean, it's nothing extraordinary. There are no surprise picks.
But
Not
the
that
one
we're
thing I'll
expecting
say, Zahid,
anything.
to that is, I think with Pakistan, how we talked about how everyone else has played it safe. In Pakistan, I don't think we played it safe. I literally think that we didn't really have a
It is. It
choice.
is. It is what it is. I mean, yeah, that's the weird thing. We talked about all the surprising exclusions from Australia, from England, from India. There is no like exclusion in the Pakistan. We discussed like some Muhammad Ali and all those Muhammad Haris, people who could have been in based on certain but there's no one who's like firing in form and you're like, oh, this person needs to be in the squad. There's no like, there isn't an Abhishek Sharma here. There isn't a Jake McGuckgreg, whatever his name is, who equivalent here, who's like absolutely on fire and you
Yeah.
can't find a place for him.
Exactly. And you had an
That's,
and you had a PSL. It's not like you didn't have a
yeah,
domestic tournament. You did, and just nobody
yeah,
came out of it, which is sad.
yeah.
But last question for me, Zahid. Would you say Irfan Khan? Would you say Irfan Khan? Sorry, cut that bit. Would you say Usman Khan gets in over Irfan?
Yes, partly because I think Usman is also a backup keeper, although you've got Azam Khan. I'd probably go with Usman. Look, it's a toss up. I don't know, Usman can probably play at the top of the order.
The
Um,
the issue I have with that, Zahid, is I think we are not short of top order batters. I think we're more short
yeah,
of the middle order. Now, Usman Khan can play the middle order if he needs to, but I think then it comes down to performance. Usman Khan's
yeah,
performance was better in the PSL, but Irfan's performance was better in the couple of games that he played in the in
New
the
Zealand.
in the series against New Zealand. Right, Usman Khan got
Yeah.
all four games, but and Irfan got two. He got injured. So I don't know. It's a tough one, but
Yeah, I think
hopefully
it's
we'll see.
and part of me think Usman Khan just because of the potential, like he's played a couple of big innings in T20, right? So I think he's got that potential to get
I
100.
agree.
And maybe the part of the issue is I think this is an issue that a lot of the squads will face is because of the way the tournament is structured. You'll have a lot of easy-ish games in the beginning, so you'll
I
have a lot
agree.
of inflated,
Yeah, yeah.
and you'll have this false sense of Usman Khan might smash, I don't know, like a 70 of 20 or 70 of 30 against Canada or something, and you'll feel like, oh wow, and then
You
and then you
know,
play India 2 days later, and then he gets out for
you've
his balls.
scared me,
So,
Zahid. You've scared me. I hope Pakistan don't start rotate their brainless rotation policy for the USA Canada games, and we find ourselves out after the first round. So
Yeah.
I want them to just take every game and not rotate too much, maybe one spot
Yeah, no, I
max.
don't mean rotation, but it's even the problem with this Pakistan team is like you just don't know how good they are, right? So
Yeah,
if they might do really well against
I
USA
agree.
and Canada or Ireland, and then get smashed by India or West Indies or England, whoever
Yeah,
they
I agree.
face.
There was only one tournament I can ever remember in Pakistan ever
Yeah,
where the starting 11 was
yeah,
was the best 11 that stayed throughout the tournament, and that's the 2021 T20 World Cup, which was our most
yeah,
impressive. Pity we lost in the semi. But otherwise, every time we've always had to scramble to find our 11, and then we end up finding our best 11
yeah.
as as the
99 World
tournament
Cup, of
comes
course.
down. What do you mean?
That was the 99 World Cup team. That was a sure shot pick
No, it
itself
wasn't,
11.
right? Because I think the whole question was, I still like Bakar Yunus Bichara didn't make it.
Yeah, no,
I
but
think
after, yeah, once you know once the tournament started, then you know what the 11 was, right? It
true,
wasn't like
yeah, but
2023. It wasn't like
yeah.
2023 or whatever, right? Like,
But that I remember there was
yeah.
Yusuf Johanna versus at the time Yusuf Johanna versus Shahid Afridi versus Salim Malik. I remember
I'm
there
like,
was that
yeah,
toss up between those three. Um,
yeah,
because Azhar Mahmood was a sure shot, and so was Razak and obviously Moin
yeah,
Khan. So you had Yusuf, who had just was a new and
yeah,
emerging talented batter. You had
yeah,
Salim Malik, who was experienced but past his prime, and then you had Shahid Afridi, who was a wild card who could give
yeah,
you a bowling option with leg spin and a big
yeah,
hitting player,
yeah,
right? So you had option there. But
yeah,
yes, you're right. You
yeah,
knew who your best were and you could rotate. But in
yeah,
other cases, we've literally
yeah,
scrambled, and then we end up finding our 11. And you're like, why the
yeah.
hell did you have this at the start? Abdul Razak in the 2009 World Cup. Suddenly, we found him not for his batting but for his bowling because we need, you know, I still
Yeah. And
remember
he
it
wasn't
so
even he
vividly.
got bought in for someone else, right? Who one of the bowlers got injured. Was
Yasir
it
Arafat.
Yeah, if I got injured, he got got in
Arafat,
for a job.
Arafat कहाँ ये कहाँ
Yeah.
and then I
Yeah.
still remember actually no I well yes even to 2011 World Cup which we
Yeah.
actually dominated Waqar Yunus was hell bent on
Yeah.
having Abdur Rahman in the team in place of Saeed Ajmal
Yeah.
who is the best spinner in the world because Abdur Rahman could offer more with the bat and in the field. अबे यार
Yeah.
या अब्दुल रहमान जॉन्टी रोड्स तो नहीं है field. I mean he wasn't a Jaunty Rhodes in the field, and
Yeah.
and you don't pick your frontline spinner
Yeah.
on the basis of his batting. It's just silly.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
we've had so many silly things. I'm sure we'll have,
Yeah.
do the same here again, and we'll find our way. And annoyingly, we always play India earlier in the tournaments. We'll have some random 11, and then we'll
Yeah.
sort of scramble our way and get to some semblance of a good top
Yeah.
team. But, anyways, there you have it. Thank you, Zaid. We've got a lot of cricket coming up, and we've got more squad announcements. But obviously, please stay tuned for lots of more exciting content. And please subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.